The wedding hall was filled with the sound of clinking glasses and murmurs of excitement, the lavish decorations casting a golden glow throughout the room. It was a picture-perfect celebration, a millionaire's dream wedding. But then, everything stopped. The room went silent, as if the very air had frozen. All eyes turned toward the pregnant maid, Emma, standing quietly in the corner, her hands trembling as she adjusted her dress. And then the bride, Vanessa, stood up, her eyes glinting with something colder than just control. With a smile that could send a chill down anyone's spine, she looked at the crowd and said, "For our next song, our maid, Emma, will be performing." The words rang through the air, leaving Emma stunned, her heart racing in her chest. She had never been asked, never been prepared for this moment. The cruel irony didn't hit her until it was too late. She had no choice but to comply. What Vanessa didn't know, what no one could have anticipated, was that this would not be Emma's humiliation. This would be her moment, and it would be the very thing that shattered the perfect image Vanessa had so carefully crafted. But how did it come to this? How did a simple maid, working in the shadows of the mansion, become the catalyst for one of the most unexpected turnarounds anyone could have imagined? Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Emma walked down the long, echoing hallways of the mansion, the heavy scent of freshly cut roses mixing with the faint hum of wedding preparations. The soft click of her shoes on the marble floor was the only sound she could focus on as she moved through the grand, ornate spaces. Every room was filled with luxury, from the sparkling chandeliers to the plush carpets that covered the floors. But none of it mattered. At 6 months pregnant, every step felt like a mountain to climb. Her back ached, her feet swollen, but it was the exhaustion of something deeper, something she couldn't shake. Her future, her dreams, all seemed to fade as she worked in the shadows, invisible and unheard. The staff rushed around her, all busy preparing for the grand day ahead, food being arranged, decorations checked, and last-minute details being finalized. Yet Emma didn't feel like part of the team. She was just the maid, the one who cleaned, served, and disappeared into the background. Her belly, growing round with life, was a reminder of the future she had been forced to face alone. The luxurious surroundings of the mansion only made her feel more isolated, a stark contrast to the dreams of a career in music she had left behind. As she pushed her cleaning cart down the corridor, Vanessa appeared at the end of the hall. Her sharp, calculating eyes met Emma's for just a moment, and Emma quickly lowered her gaze, instinctively pulling herself into the background. The coldness in Vanessa's stare cut through her. It was the kind of look that reminded Emma of her place, of the hierarchy that defined everything in this world. Vanessa, the bride, the one who would soon have it all, standing in contrast to Emma, who would always remain in the margins. With a flick of her hand, Vanessa dismissed her without a word, her eyes never leaving Emma's face. It was a routine, this cold acknowledgement of Emma's existence, something that had become all too familiar over the past few months. Emma's heart sank, but she kept moving forward. There was no time for self-pity, no room for weakness. She was the invisible worker, the one who kept the mansion running smoothly, but who never belonged. She longed for the freedom that singing once gave her, the warmth of a crowd's applause, the joy of performing in front of others. But that world felt so distant now, like a dream that had slipped through her fingers. However, today, something was different. Today, something was about to shift. Unbeknownst to Vanessa, Emma's quiet hums as she worked had grown into something more. The tunes she had once written, songs of love and loss, of dreams and hope, had begun to take root in her heart again. The exhaustion of the days, the weight of her pregnancy, none of it could drown out the music she had long since abandoned. For the first time in months, she felt alive with a purpose beyond just surviving. Something was changing, not just in the mansion but inside her. The life growing within her wasn't just her burden, it was her strength, her reason to fight for something more. She might have been invisible to Vanessa, to everyone else, but she wasn't invisible to herself. And in that moment, as Emma glanced up from her cleaning cart, something deep within her stirred. Her days of quiet submission were coming to an end. She had no idea what was about to unfold, but she knew one thing for certain. This day would change everything. Emma Wilson was 28, far from the Nashville music career she had once dreamed of. Now she found herself working as a live-in maid for tech millionaire Richard Bennett and his soon-to-be bride, the cold and calculating Vanessa Clark. The mansion was stunning, its marble floors and high ceilings a testament to Richard's success. But Emma felt like a ghost in the halls, unseen and unheard. Vanessa's icy demeanor was a constant reminder of her place, beneath them, both literally and figuratively. The way she dismissed Emma with a look or a harsh command, it stung. Despite her circumstances, Emma held on to a secret, one that no one knew about. Beneath the surface of her exhaustion, behind the forced smiles, Emma still had a voice that once filled the small stages of Nashville, a voice that could move people. No one had heard it in years, but it was still there, waiting to be unleashed. Every day she woke up, knowing that her dreams were slipping further away, but there was a part of her that refused to let go. Vanessa's cruelty was always just below the surface. The way she ordered Emma around, never a moment's kindness, the way she could barely look her in the eye without finding something to reprimand. Emma had grown used to it, but it didn't make it any easier. She felt small, invisible in the grand mansion. But today, something inside her shifted. She could feel it. Something was about to change. This wasn't just another day of cleaning. Something was stirring inside Emma, and she had no idea how much that would impact everything around her. Each day at the mansion, Emma worked harder than the last, the weight of her swollen belly making even the simplest tasks feel impossible. Her back ached, her feet throbbed, but she pressed on, knowing that the overtime pay would be her only way to start saving for her baby. As the days passed, the exhaustion grew, but so did the tension between her and Vanessa. The bride, with her cold, judgmental eyes, seemed to take pleasure in reminding Emma of her place. It was as if she enjoyed seeing her struggle. Antonio, the chef, noticed her fatigue. He had a kindness about him that stood in stark contrast to Vanessa's cruelty. One afternoon, as Emma set down a tray of appetizers, Antonio caught her by the arm. "You're pushing yourself too hard," he said softly, his concern evident. "Don't forget to take breaks. The baby needs a healthy mom." Emma forced a smile, grateful for the small bit of kindness. "Thank you, Antonio," she replied, but deep down, she knew she couldn't afford to slow down. Not now. She had to keep working, keep proving her worth, even if no one saw it. Still, as the days wore on, the tension between her and Vanessa only worsened. Every glance from the bride felt colder, more cutting. It was as if Vanessa had made it her personal mission to remind Emma of the vast difference in their lives. Emma did her best to ignore it, to focus on the tasks at hand. But it was hard to shake the feeling that Vanessa was always watching her, waiting for the smallest misstep. What Emma didn't know was that something was happening beneath the surface, something she had no way of understanding. Vanessa had been watching Emma more closely than ever before, noticing the small, subtle hums Emma often made as she worked. At first it seemed innocent, just a way for Emma to pass the time. But there was something about those hums that caught Vanessa's attention. There was a rhythm to them, a sweetness in the way they floated through the air. Vanessa couldn't quite put her finger on it, but it stirred something inside her, a spark of cruelty and control. She had no idea what those hums meant, but in her mind, she began to craft a plan. If Emma wanted to make her presence known, then Vanessa would make sure everyone noticed. She'd put Emma in her place once and for all, and that would be the end of it. What Emma didn't realize, though, was that Richard, the groom, had heard her sing before. It happened one day when she was alone in the study, humming softly to herself as she dusted the bookshelves. Richard had wandered into the room, looking for a quiet moment away from the chaos of wedding preparations. He had stopped in the doorway, listening for a moment before he quietly approached. "I didn't know you could sing," Richard had said, his voice warm and genuine. Emma froze, her face turning red with embarrassment. "Oh, it's nothing, really, just a habit I've had for a long time." But Richard didn't move. He stayed there, watching her with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. "It's beautiful," he said, before walking away, leaving Emma to process what had just happened. For a brief moment, she felt seen, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. But it was fleeting. Richard had heard her, and the realization would have ripple effects. What would happen next, Emma had no way of knowing, but she felt it, the shift in the air. She could feel something building, like a storm on the horizon. Her life, her situation, everything she had endured up until this point, was about to change. But how? Little did Emma know her quiet hums would soon be the catalyst that turned the entire wedding and her life upside down. But then everything changed. On the day of the wedding rehearsal, as Emma helped set up the dinner hall, moving silver platters and arranging chairs with meticulous care, Vanessa called out to her sharply, her voice cutting through the hum of preparations. "Emma," she said with an air of finality, "for our next song at the wedding, you'll be singing." The words hit Emma like a slap. Her heart raced and her breath caught in her throat. A wave of shock washed over her, the room suddenly feeling too small, the air too thick. She froze for a moment, unsure if she had heard correctly. But Vanessa's cold eyes, the smug smile on her lips, made it clear that this wasn't a request. It was an order. There was no room for protest, no chance to back out. Emma's stomach churned. The thought of performing in front of a room full of strangers, all dressed in their finest, all watching her every move, it was overwhelming. But she had no choice. Not in this mansion, not under Vanessa's thumb. "Yes, Miss Clark," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible. She swallowed hard, forcing her mind to accept the reality of what was happening. Vanessa nodded curtly, as if she had just solved the world's greatest problem, and then turned away, leaving Emma standing there, a mix of dread and disbelief filling her chest. Emma couldn't understand why Vanessa would humiliate her like this, but she knew one thing for sure: she had no control. What she didn't know, however, was that her forced performance would become the spark for a chain of events no one could have predicted. Her voice, which had been stifled for so long, was about to be unleashed in a way that would change everything. If this part is making sense, drop a comment with "I'm still here." Let's see who's really watching to this point. As the day of the wedding arrived, tensions ran high. The mansion buzzed with the last-minute preparations, but Emma felt like an outsider in a sea of opulence. She stood in front of the mirror, staring at herself in her least favorite dress. It was uncomfortable, ill-fitting, and a constant reminder of the role she had been forced into. She swallowed her nerves, steeling herself for what was to come. Her heart pounded in her chest as she made her way to the stage. Every step felt like it could be her last, every pair of eyes on her a reminder of her position. And then there was Vanessa, standing at the edge of the room with her smug smile, her arms crossed, as if Emma's humiliation was her personal victory. It made Emma feel small, like a puppet on a string. But Emma had a secret. What Vanessa didn't know, what no one knew, was that Emma had been practicing in private. She had spent countless hours alone, singing into the silence, her voice growing stronger with every note. Now, standing on that stage, she was ready to show them all. The moment the first note escaped her lips, the entire room seemed to freeze. Time itself paused, the music suspended in the air as every guest turned to stare at her. Richard's gaze locked with Emma's, and for the first time, she didn't feel invisible. She didn't feel like a maid or a servant. She felt seen. His eyes softened, an unspoken understanding passing between them. But that moment wasn't just powerful for Emma. It was the tipping point. The tension between Vanessa and Emma reached a boiling point, and Emma could feel the shift in the room. What happened next would shake everyone to their core. The audience was stunned into silence as Emma's voice rang out, full of emotion and power. Each note she sang carried a weight, of years spent in the shadows, of dreams deferred, of the hope she had almost given up on. Vanessa's face twisted in anger as the realization hit her. She had underestimated Emma. The quiet maid, the one she had tried to crush, was standing before her, stronger than ever. Richard, who had been watching the entire performance, stood up, his applause louder than anyone else's. The guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, caught between shock and awe. Emma's voice had captivated the room, but more importantly, it had made Richard see her for who she truly was. The powerful, beautiful woman hidden beneath the surface of the Maid. Vanessa's plans were unraveling before her eyes. This wasn't just a wedding anymore. It was the moment Emma took control of her own fate. And then, Richard did the unthinkable. He stood, his hands clapping, louder than anyone else in the room. He crossed the floor toward Emma, the eyes of everyone in the room following him. Without hesitation, he took her hand in front of the guests, the bride, and everyone else. The room fell silent. "I think Emma deserves a real opportunity," Richard said, his voice carrying through the room. His words hit like a bombshell. The shock in the room was palpable. Vanessa's face flushed with disbelief as the weight of Richard's words settled in. In that one moment, Emma's life, her future, everything she had dreamed of, shifted. She had found her voice, and now the world would listen. What would you have done in Emma's place? Was her performance the ultimate revenge, or just a twist of fate? Could you have stood up like she did, knowing the consequences? Let us know in the comments, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on more shocking stories every week. We've got plenty more jaw-dropping moments coming your way. Don't miss out, hit that notification bell, and join us for the next chapter.